Hey everybody, welcome to our continuing discussion with Carl Denaro. I'm RockerMike, this is Rossi, Carl Denaro to my right, and you're watching Conspiracy 420, the Son of Sam Chronicles with Carl Denaro. We're discussing again the fourth shooting. This was from January 30th, 1977, the Christine Freund and John Diel shooting in Forest Hills. We talked about in the last episode how this went down. We got into who possibly, or witnesses, really there weren't any, but suspicious characters. Berkowitz was seen there by John Diel, something that occurred to him later on, a couple of months later.
Right.
But when John Diel was interviewed, and again these will just be some theories we're going to put out here as to what may have happened, because stuff came out into the light after the fact. When Diel was interviewed, he remembered when they were driving to Forest Hills from Ridgewood, driving down Metropolitan Avenue, and at some point there was a car that passed them on the right, which would be really in the shoulder. It's just a one lane one way, one lane the other way thoroughfare. Passed them on the right, kind of shot them a look and continued forward. Kind of strange, suspicious, considering what had, what would happen a couple hours later.
Right.
But also what came to light is information about John Diel and Christine Freund's relationship. That would be that John was having an affair with a woman, a woman that was married herself. Okay, and her husband may have been let's just say a connected person. What do you know about this, Carl?
Yeah, that's the story that I believe Maury described it in his book. I'm not really sure if the NYPD delved into it. I believe they did, but apparently there was. John was having an affair with this woman who John was engaged to Christine.
Right.
And the woman that John was having an affair with, she was married to a connected guy. And Christine found out about it and knew enough about this woman to send her a letter.
She obviously knew where she lived.
She obviously knew where she lived, yes.
Yeah.
Because she sent her a letter and basically said, "Stay away from my man." I'm sure the letter was a lot more, said a lot more than just that, but that's what I remember.
Sure.
And that's really what's important to our story. Stay away from my man. So this is also the shooting that Maury, suggested that. Well, it was suggested because some prison informants had told them, including Berkowitz, that somebody from the West Coast was brought in to do the shooting. I'm not really sure about that. It's like, I don't know, you got the 22 Disciples of Hell. We already know John Carr's a shooter. We know Michael Carr's a shooter. Berkowitz is a shooter. I'm not really sure why you had to bring in somebody from the West Coast, but who am I to say that's right or wrong?
Yeah.
But that is the theory, and because
the guy had like some weird code name, right? Didn't they have a code name for him?
Maury came up with it.
Yeah. Maury named him Manson 2.
Manson 2, that's right.
And the reason he named him Manson 2 is because this person, whose real name is William Menser, supposedly has some connections to the Manson crew out in California.
Wow. As a family member, or just
no
peripherals?
Where people have done research on Menser's connection to the Manson family, and this one of the researchers in the official Ultimate Evil Facebook group, Craig Adams. He's done quite a bit of research, and he believes Menser is not Manson 2. But that's his opinion, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree at this stage because, to be honest with you, I haven't really delved into all his research, but his findings, there's no mention of a Menser in. As we all know, there's been tons of books written about Manson and the family, and similar to the Son of Sam, where they say the 22 disciples of hell. We all know that doesn't include everyone that was involved in the Son of Sam. So just like the Manson family, there was, for lack of a better term, hangers-on, weekend warriors. People would just show up at the ranch and do drugs and hang out with the Manson family.
A lot of girls there.
Right, a lot of girls there. That's another
aspect of it.
Another aspect that both cases share.
Yeah. But I should add that Menser is actually in jail now.
Well, let's get one thing straight. Menson's not a good guy.
No.
By no stretch of
He's
imagination.
in jail right now for the murder of Roy Radin.
Exactly.
Who was a film producer and
a cocaine
dealer and threw sex parties in the Hamptons, and
right.
We'll get into him maybe later on in another episode.
He will.
Yes.
Yeah. Roy Radin will be one of the highlights of the last shooting in Brooklyn,
right.
Which we'll cover at a later
Carl,
date.
before you were shooting, was anybody pissed off on you? Or did you piss somebody off?
How could anyone be pissed off at me?
Never know. You never know. I'll get that son of a bitch.
I mean, we kind of went through this a few shows ago. There's nothing in my past to some people didn't like me, but no one was that. No one hated me that much where they wanted me to shoot. They might have wanted to slap me across the face a couple of times, but
the more you guys talk about it, the more I think these guys were just hitmen. That they got a list of people that needed to hit, and because they pissed off some people, especially the next shooting with that girl that got killed that we're gonna talk about soon. That was totally like a freaking mafia hit, and then you call it somebody else. You find out this one's having an affair. You start connecting. You see,
that's a good point. It's a good point, Rob.
I'm just saying, it's a theory. It's not like
it's a little off topic on this, but I guess now is just as good a time to talk about it than any other time. A lot of people think that some of the shootings were hits. And you could run down the list. Mine. If my shooting, if it was a hit, it would have to do something with Rosemary, and possibly because her dad being a detective in the same precinct that I was shot in. So I don't know if you would call that a hit or maybe revenge. That's certainly possible. We haven't figured it out yet. That's something I'm hoping David Berkowitz can answer.
The way I see it, Carl and Rob, is there's elements of that in some of the shootings. Okay, probably this one. Okay, Diel and Freund. Maybe in the Vosketchian. Maybe in the Brooklyn one. Okay, but you got to remember what the mob had their hands in those days, okay, and there was pornography, there was child trafficking, okay, and if they weren't involved directly, they were involved as paying people.
Don't forget prostitution.
Prostitution, absolutely.
Both men and women.
Men and women, right, and you're talking about cases here that are involving a cult, absolutely. I mean, we know that. And so it all comes together. I don't think you could say that they were all hits.
Some were
just but there were just some that were needed. People were going to be shot for random kind of stuff like you.
Right.
Okay. To create fear and terror in the city.
Yeah.
Which also in doing that creates power within the cult. Okay. And it's all intertwined. So I don't think you could say it's just that.
There is no one answer to it.
It's many answers.
Because you could make...
and that's what makes this so fascinating and frustrating, too.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to pinpoint one thing. And but with the Diel Freund shooting, getting back to that for a second, it was after this shooting that NYPD Sergeant Richard Conlon stated that police were leaning towards a connection between the past three shootings, excuse me.
Right.
And this
right.
one, okay? They knew a large caliber 44 was used.
Right.
Okay, they had the bullets. But, you know, they really weren't sure. Okay?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I believe you're right. I mean, after the shooting, they did. It wasn't like a public announcement, but you're right.
But I think it was in print. I think it was made public that we're dealing with.
It just wasn't a big splashy headline.
Right.
It was
Multiple,
I said earlier, you know, an article, maybe two articles, because they really had nothing to go on. The only thing that they had to go on is large caliber 44 bullets, which are not the norm.
Right. I think
for street crime.
any detective worth the, you know, his knowledge of police work, okay, would say, hey, a 44, all right, we don't see too many of these. Okay.
Right.
So I think that within the police department there probably was an idea that they're connected. Just how much were they going to make that public?
I just want to go back, and I think I mentioned it in a previous interview, but if I didn't, it's a good time. I was told recently, like 6 months ago, that Rosemary's father was having coffee with a buddy of his who happened to also be a detective, a homicide detective, who worked in Queens Village. And that's the precinct, the 105, that handled the Lamino DeMasi shooting. And they were friends. And right after that shooting, they're having a cup of coffee and, you know, just shooting the breeze. And he says, hey, you know, I caught a strange one last night or last week. I'm not sure when this meeting took place. And he said, you know, two girls were, you know, standing on their porch, and a guy approached them and pumped bullets, you know, pumped a couple shots.
This was the shooting right after yours.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he said, wow, he goes, that's, and Red Keenan said, that's the same caliber that, you know, that was used in the attack of my daughter.
Yeah.
So, this is back in, let me see, that shooting was in
77.
you know, late 77.
76.
Yeah.
I think it was 76.
October, it was the end of November of 76.
Yeah.
So this took place before the next shooting, this conversation. So the point I'm trying to make is, even though it might not have been official in the NYPD, certainly individual detectives were looking at it and saying, hey, there's something going on here. A 44, two shootings with a 44.
Yeah. And you have to also realize this is 1976, 77. There's no computers.
Right.
There's no, if there is, it's very little.
Right.
Okay. And, you know, these were happening in different precincts.
Yeah.
So they may not have put it together that easily.
Like I just wanted to make the point that these two guys just happen to be friends, and they both happen to be cops in different precincts,
Yeah,
and
it's not-
they picked up on it.
Yeah, you know what? It's not like now, like, oh, they share all the thing because they put everything in the network.
It would
and
pop-
data,
it would
so
pop up.
It would pop
It
up.
would pop
Back
up.
then, how the hell do you?
As someone said this, I think Howie said this. Yeah, the Son of Sam couldn't happen today.
No. It would have been caught like after the second one.
It could happen, but it wouldn't last 13
It
months.
wouldn't last 13 months, yeah.
No, especially with TVs or just the videos that we got out there in the streets and stuff. That thing will not last very long. You know, and they connect the dot now so quickly. It's funny how they're like, this guy did that.
Yep.
By the time you know, they already got investigation. They already know how many people you did. So
Now, is it correct, Carl, that Berkowitz himself said he was at the scene, but he said he was not the shooter of this?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be at least two people involved because he admitted being there.
Right.
And Diel knew he was there because when he was apprehended, he remembered
That he
seeing
bumped
him
into
coming
him.
out of the,
Right,
out of the,
exactly.
out of the winery place. You're talking at least two people there. The second one not being described in any way. They had no witness.
Right.
But also, just to recap, is you have this personal problem between Freund and Diel, where their relationship, he was having an affair. I guess he put an end to it, obviously, okay, because agreed to put an end to it, okay. But this woman's never been interviewed, right? Never been spoken to.
There was some.
We don't know her name.
I don't know her name.
I don't recall it in the
I
book.
remember reading. I remember reading, and again, I don't know if it's in the book or it's just something Maury told me that she had some. She was European.
Right, German maybe or something.
I'm thinking German, but not positive. And right after this happened, she went back to
Europe.
Germany.
Wow.
I don't know if she ever came back. I don't know if she left because she wanted to be questioned. This is all another mystery. Another mini mystery wrapped up in the Son of Sam.
Diel himself was a popular bartender in Ridgewood. Ridgewood at the time was still heavily German and Italian.
Right.
Okay, so you have that background. It's possible.
Yeah. There's another, and again, I'm not sure if this is in the book, but this is something Maury had discussed with me. That John had a brother, and I don't even know his name, but he had a brother who was also a bartender.
Oh.
Who was also having an affair. And so
Lots of bartenders.
That's the affair.
So there's another alternative theory that it was that Christine was mistaken. The shooting, going back to was a hit. It could be mistaken identity because it could have been.
They thought it was the brother.
It could have been, they were both bartenders. They were both named Diel, and apparently they looked similar. They both, had dark hair with beards.
Oh.
And that is like the Deuce with James Franco with the two twin brothers, and they're always getting mistaken for each other.
There you go.
The mob going after one guy thinking it's the other guy.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I think there's some connections.
There's
to
something
that,
going on there.
Yeah, the dudes that were both bartenders.
that's funny.
They're both bartenders.
One guy was a degenerate gambler.
Right.
The other guy was
just a good bartender, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you can see, the fourth shooting has it is a case unto itself. I mean, you could probably devote. You could probably devote 20 investigators, spend another 40 years trying to get to the bottom of this
no
one.
sketches, so you really don't have that to work with,
Right.
where you do with some of the others. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, I'd like to take a break here. Thank Carl again, and we'll see you soon for the next episode of Conspiracy 420, the Son of Sam Chronicles.